Hey guys, welcome to our Week 17 Sunday Best Bets video. We are going to be looking at every NFL game on Saturday and Sunday for Week 17, looking at the best bets portion. So the spreads, the money lines, and the over-unders. As we're getting closer to the end of the season, there's a lot of teams battling for playoff spots right now, so things are getting pretty interesting. But let's go ahead and get things started. So kicking things off on Saturday, December 30th at 8:15 p.m., we have the 11-4 Detroit Lions versus the 10-5 Dallas Cowboys. Dallas comes into this game 5.5-point favorites here, and the over-under is 52.5. Looking at the line, so Jared Goff has led this team. They had a really strong first half, had a top 10 defense, had a top 10 offense. Second half, things got rocky. The offense started to have a lot of turnovers, and the defense started getting scorched every single weekend. But the last 2 to 3 weeks, they've actually played a lot better. Dallas, they are coming off of that really close loss versus the Miami Dolphins. They did knock them down, beat them. Defense gave up some yards there, but they still have a top 5 offense, still have a top 5 defense. Looking at the total team stats here, you have the Lions coming in. They're averaging 27.5 points per game. They also have a top 10 offense still. Dallas averages 30.1 points per game. And on defense, the line gives up 23.7 points per game. Dallas gives up 19.1 points per game. Dallas still has a lot of really good playmakers. They have Dak, they have Pollard, they have CeeDee Lamb. I have Dallas getting the win here. 30-23, covering the spread, and I am going with the over. But this is a really fun game to watch because both teams are both in search of the Super Bowl this year. So this game has pretty high stakes. We're now moving on to our Sunday game. So Sunday, December 31st at 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the 4-11 New England Patriots versus the 9-6 Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is a pretty big favorite here. So they're 12.5-point favorites, and the over-under is 40.5. Patriots, their offense has actually been playing pretty decent the last 3 weeks. Bailey Zappi has been going off, throwing for a lot of yards. Elliott has had a pretty strong running game for the last few weeks, and the defense has been looking pretty strong for the Buffalo Bills. So they're looking really good the last 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously, the offense has really gotten going. They have a top 10 offense. They have a top 10 defense. The Buffalo Bills' main problem has been whenever the offense plays well, the defense gives up a lot of points. Whenever the defense plays well, the offense gets shut out. But looking at the total team stats here, you have New England coming in with one of the worst offenses in the league, a very pathetic. They're averaging 14.1 points per game. Buffalo, top 10 offense, averaging 26.9 points per game. And on defense, Patriots give up 21.5 points per game. Buffalo gives up 18.4 points per game. Buffalo obviously has the way better skill players. They have Josh Allen. They have Cook at running back. They have Diggs at wide receiver. Even though the Patriots have been playing better, I have Buffalo getting the win here, 27-13, covering the spread, but I'm actually going with the under this game, just because I don't think that the Patriots will be able to score enough points to get the over. The next game that we're going to be looking at 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the 7-8 Falcons versus the 6-9 Chicago Bears. Chicago comes into this game. They are 3-point favorites, and the over-under is 37.5. So Chicago is the slight favorite here. For the Falcons, they have one of the better rosters. They actually have a pretty solid defense. The main issue has been the quarterback position. Whether it's Ritter, whether it's Heineke, really doesn't matter. They both haven't played well so far this season. They have a lot of playmakers. They have Bijan Robinson. They have London. They have Kyle Pitts. It's the quarterback position that has been holding them back. Chicago, Justin Fields missed a lot of games this season, but when he has played, he's looked really good, throwing the ball, passing the ball. He's basically playing right now for the starting quarterback position. If it's with the Bears or if they trade him this offseason, he is trying to get the best team that he could possibly get traded to, because there's a lot of rumors that the Bears are going to be drafting a quarterback. I don't necessarily think that they need to do that, but if they do, they might be looking at Caleb Williams or Drake May, and they may be trying to trade Justin Fields. Looking at the total team stats here, the Falcons average 19.1 points per game. The Bears average 20.9 points per game. And on defense, the Falcons give up 19.2 points per game. Chicago gives up 23 points per game. But the Bears' defense has actually looked better for the last few weeks. They have the better quarterback. They don't have a quarterback question. Falcons do. Falcons are still technically in the playoff hunt, so they could win this game. It's kind of a 51-49% game, but I have the Bears pulling out the win, winning 24-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over here. The next game that we're looking at 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the 7-8 Las Vegas Raiders versus the 8-7 Colts. Colts 3.5-point favorites here. The over/under is 42.5. The Raiders, they've actually been playing pretty well for the last few weeks. They've been scoring a lot of points. They finally got the offense clicking. Their issue, just like the Falcons, has been the quarterback position, but they've been able to pull out a lot of wins with O'Connell at the quarterback position. He's not the permanent answer going forward, but they're moving the ball. They're getting first downs. They are scoring. They actually have a pretty decent roster, but they've been held back by the quarterback position, and they do have a pretty good defense. When you're looking at the Colts here, obviously they lost Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew has stepped in at quarterback. He can have a good game, 3 touchdowns. He can have a bad game, 3 picks. So a lot of the game rests on how good is Gardner Minshew going to perform against a pretty decent defense. Moss is probably not going to be playing this game, but they have Jonathan Taylor. They're very deep at the running back position. Pittman Jr. has been cleared from concussion protocol, so as of right now, he should be playing. The Raiders average 19.0 points per game. Colts average 23.6 points per game. On defense, the Raiders give up 19.6 points per game. Colts have a pretty bad defense. They give up 24.7 points per game. Even though the Raiders are the hot team, logic says to go with them, but at some point, to me, they are due for a loss. I have the Colts winning this game 24-20, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. But this game's also a pretty close one, so the Raiders can definitely win it. They've been playing better than the Colts, but I'm just going off of them being due for an upset loss. So I have the Colts winning this one. The next game that we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the 8-7 LA Rams versus the 5-10 New York Giants. Rams come in here. They're 5.5-point favorites. Over-under is 43.5. So that's a pretty big spread there. Obviously, the Rams offense has been on a roll for probably the last 6 to 7 weeks. Stafford's closing in on 3,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 9 picks. They have Williams at running back closing in on 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. They have Nakua going off this year, closing in on 1,400 yards as a rookie. They have Cooper Kupp. They are loaded on the offense, and their defense has looked pretty good for the last month. Giants, even with DeVito, they don't have the offense. They don't have the defense. Looking at the team stats here, you have the Rams coming in. They average 23.8 points per game. Giants average a very low, almost as bad as the Patriots, 14.3 points per game. And on defense, Rams give up 22.1 points per game, but they've looked better the last few weeks. Giants give up 24.7 points per game. I have the Rams getting the win here. They have something to play for. They're still trying to make the playoffs. I have them winning 27-20, covering the spread, and I'm also going with the over. Next game at 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the 3-2 Arizona Cardinals versus the 11-4 Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are a massive 12-point favorite here. Over-under is 48.5. So Vegas has the Eagles just beating the brakes off the Cardinals, and it's definitely understandable why. So the Cardinals, Kyler Murray's had some decent games. He's had some bad games, but he was off for a long time hurt, so he's going to be pretty rusty. As of right now, looks like the Cardinals are going to be keeping Murray, trying to build the team around him, but they have a lot of building to do. They need to flip this roster. They need to get some playmakers. With the Eagles, they did go on that 3-game losing streak, finally got the ship right this past weekend. They don't have a good defense, but they have a lot of talent on the offensive side. They have a top 5 line. They have Hurts, even though he's not playing like he played last year. They still have Hurts. He can throw it. He can run it. They have Swift at running back. They have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith. Looking at the total team stats here, the Cardinals come in. They're averaging on offense 18.3 points per game. Philadelphia 26.1 points per game. On defense, they're both pretty bad. Cardinals give up 26.9 points per game. Eagles give up 24.4 points per game. Cardinals don't have anything to play for, just trying to get a good pick. Eagles do have something to play for. They want to go into the playoffs with a winning streak, stay hot. I have the Eagles winning 34-20, covering the spread, and I'm also going to go with the over again here. Next game that we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the 7-8 New Orleans Saints versus the 8-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay comes in here 2.5-point favorites, and the over-under is 42.5. Saints offense has actually been playing a lot better. This is a really good roster. They have playmakers on the offense. They have Kamara. They have Olave. They have the playmakers there. The thing holding them back was Derek Carr. He was not able to throw the ball accurately past 5 yards, but they've actually been passing a lot better the last few weeks. They're definitely better on the roster than the record shows. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've been one of the better looking teams for the last few weeks. Baker Mayfield is actually having a under the radar comeback player of the year so far. He's closing in on 3,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. He's not doing anything stupid. He's not doing anything to lose the game. He is actually doing things to win them the game. The D-line has been playing pretty well. They have White at running back. They have Evans. They have Godwin. They have the playmakers there. Looking at the total team stats here, you have the Saints coming in. They average 22.1 points per game. Tampa Bay 21.7 points per game, so they're pretty even there. And on defense, the Saints give up 19.8 points per game, and the Buccaneers give up 20.1 points per game. I have the Buccaneers getting the win. 24-17, covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. This is one of those games I could see it flip-flopped. I can see the Saints winning the game 24-17. This is a pretty tough game. These teams are very similar. I'm just going to go with the more solid play so far. So I'm going with the Buccaneers. Next game at 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the San Francisco 49ers sitting at 11-4. They did lose this past weekend. They actually got beat pretty bad. They will be playing the 4-11 Washington Commanders. San Francisco 12.5 point favorites here, over under 49.5. So again, Vegas has the 49ers beating the brakes off of Washington, and it's understandable why. Washington, they're not bad on offense, but they're definitely not good on offense, and they're the worst team in the NFL on defense. That's Ron Rivera's specialty. It's a complete disaster. That guy's definitely going to be fired once next week ends. San Francisco, even though they're coming off of a beatdown this past week versus the Ravens, they have the best top-to-bottom roster in all of the NFL. Brock Purdy looked like complete garbage last week, but overall, he's having a very strong year, closing in on 4,100 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 picks. They have the best running back. They have McCaffrey closing in on 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns. They have Ayuk. They have Debo. They have Kittle. Lots of weapons, and their defensive roster is also stacked and loaded top to bottom. Looking at the total team stats here, San Francisco has the top 5 offense, averaging 29.6 points per game. Washington averages 20.6 points per game. But Sam Howell got benched last week, will not be starting this Sunday. On defense, the 49ers give up 17.8 points per game. Top 5 defense also. Washington gives up a whopping 30.2 points per game. So even if Brock Purdy plays and completely stinks, they're going to score lots of points because Washington cannot stop anyone. I have the 49ers winning 31-10, covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. Just because I think that the 49ers should be due to completely shut down Washington. They played bad last weekend, so they're due for a really strong performance this weekend. The next game that we're looking at, every single game seems to be a 1 p.m. game this weekend. At 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the 2-13 Carolina Panthers versus the 8-7 Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags come in as 6-point favorites here. Over-under is 37.5. Obviously, the Panthers, their offense has played better the last 2 weeks, but everyone slow down. I'm not jumping on that ship right now. They have Bryce Young. They have a couple decent playmakers, but they have no really good playmakers. So this team is going nowhere right now. They have nothing to win for. They have nothing to lose for because they don't have a first-round pick this year. So they're really going nowhere, and they need to flip this roster, but they're going to have to do it without a first-round pick. So it's pretty tough, and they also fired their coach. Jacksonville, they're riding, a 3 or 4 game losing streak right now. They have to win this game. Everyone's basically tied in their division. They need to win this game. They need to end the losing streak. Who better to end the losing streak versus the only 2-win team in the NFL? As of right now, Trevor Lawrence should be playing. Looking at the total team stats here, you have the Panthers coming in. They average 15.7 points per game. Jacksonville averages 22.1 points per game. And on defense, Panthers give up 25.4 points per game. Jacksonville gives up 22.9 points per game. This is the game for Jacksonville to get the ship right, end the losing streak, get back in the win category. I have Jacksonville winning one easy, 28-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. They need this game bad because there's a lot of teams on their heels in their own division. The next game that we're looking at 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the 11-4 Miami Dolphins versus the 12-3 Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's 3-point favorites here. Over-under is 46.5. Dolphins are obviously coming off of that close win versus the Dallas Cowboys. That was their best win of the season. As of right now, they have themselves positioned as the number 2 or 3 best team in the NFL so far with their record. This team is loaded on offense. They have Tua closing in on 4,300 yards. They have Mostert. They have Achin. They have Hill, Waddle, Berrios. But as of right now, Waddle's probably not playing this game on Sunday. That's a massive loss. Can they do it without Waddle? Yes. But Baltimore's probably the hottest team in all of professional football right now, coming off of a complete beatdown of the 49ers. They look better on offense. They look better on defense. They have a top 10 defense, top 10 offense. This team is loaded. Lamar Jackson is just basically going off this year. He has 3,400 yards passing. He has 800 yards rushing. He's basically carrying this team, but the defense is also playing really strong. So Miami averages 30.9 points per game, the number 1 offense. Baltimore is right behind them. They average 27.8 points per game. That's a top 5 offense. On defense, Miami's D has been looking really good for the last 6 weeks. They're only giving up 20.9 points a game. Baltimore has a top 5 defense. They're giving up 16.3 points per game. Right now, both teams are hot. Baltimore's looking at the Super Bowl right now. I have the Ravens getting the win, 28-20, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. Do not underestimate the Dolphins, though. Even without Waddle, they can score, they can move the ball, but I have the Ravens getting the win. Next game at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 5-10 Tennessee Titans versus the 8-7 Houston Texans. Houston, 4.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 43.5 for the Titans. Obviously, they have Will Levis at quarterback. They have Derrick Henry at running back. Mike Vrabel, his defense is pretty stout. Look for them to show up this game, but they really don't have any vertical playmakers. That's one of the things holding them back is their offense. For the Texans, C.J. Stroud has missed some time. He was banged up. He should be back this Sunday. Should be starting as of right now. So Houston has the better offense. Obviously, they have Stroud. They have Collins at the wide receiver position. Looking at the total team stats here, Tennessee averages 18.1 points per game. Houston averages 21.9 points per game. And on defense, Tennessee gives up 21.4 points per game. Houston gives up 22.1 points per game. Look for Tennessee to try to run the ball. Keep the ball on the ground, drain the clock, keep the ball out of C.J. Stroud's hands. But Houston has to win this game. They have to keep pace in their division. They can still technically make the playoffs. They have something to play for. I have Houston getting the win here. 21-17, so I'm going with the plus 4.5. They're not covering the spread, and I'm also going with the under. This game should be pretty close, and I kind of have it somewhat low scored. Next game that we're looking at 4:05 p.m. on Fox, the 8-7 Pittsburgh Steelers versus the 8-7 Seahawks. Both of these teams trying to be the first one to get to 9 wins. The Seahawks are 3.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 41.5. So the Steelers. Mason Rudolph played really well last week. I think he threw for like 350 yards. I'm not buying that as some permanent thing. Their big issue has been offense. Been completely pathetic at the quarterback position. Whether it's been Rudolph, Pickett, they both played pretty bad. Just because Rudolph had a good game, I'm not buying that as some permanent thing going forward. Their issue has been the quarterback position since Ben Roethlisberger retired. That's not solved yet. They need to get a quarterback. But they have a really good defense led by T.J. Watt. Seahawks, Geno Smith played this past weekend. This is a pretty decent team. They're very efficient. They have Geno. They have Metcalf. So they have the playmakers there. The defense sometimes plays good, sometimes plays bad. So that's just one thing that you have to wonder about. Looking at the total team stats here, the Steelers average 17.1 points per game. Seattle, 21.3 points per game. On defense, the Steelers have a strong defense. That's what's kept them in every single game, kept the games close. They average 19.4 points per game. Seattle, 23.5 points per game. I have Seattle getting a very close, hard-fought win here. I have them winning 20-17. So I'm going with the plus 3.5. They're not covering the spread. And I'm also going with the under. If the Steelers won 20-17, I would not be surprised. This game favors the Steelers because they have the bad offense. They have the good defense. Like I said, the defense always keeps every game close. When you keep it close, they always technically have a chance. Next game at 4:25 p.m. on CBS, we have the 5-10 Chargers versus the 7-8 Denver Broncos. Denver comes in here. They're 3.5-point favorites here, and the over-under is 36.5. This is a pretty weird game. So both teams are going to have their backup. Obviously, for the Chargers, they don't have a good defense. They don't have a good offense as of right now. Herbert is out for the year. Denver Broncos just out of nowhere benched Russell Wilson. There's a whole lot of contract disputes going on there. Sean Payton, I've never been a Sean Payton fan. I think they completely wasted Drew Brees. Should have got more than one Super Bowl. Should have went to more than one Super Bowl. He's a good coach, but he's definitely not a great coach. People, to me, gave him way too much credit. But they have that whole disaster. Russell Wilson has been benched, so he will not be playing this game. They will be going with Stidham. So we have two backups playing. So really anything can happen here. But the Chargers average 21.7 points per game. Denver 21.8 points per game. On defense, Chargers give up 24.6 points per game. Denver gives up 25.1 points per game. Both teams have bad defenses. Both of the offensive stats, they really don't matter because both of the quarterbacks who got those numbers will not be playing. So we're kind of going into this game somewhat blind, but I have Denver getting the win here. Stidham has technically been a backup for a few years, so he has a lot of snaps. I have Denver winning 24-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. With backups playing, anything can happen, but I'm going to be going with the favorites here. The next game that we're looking at 4:25 on CBS, the 8-7 Cincinnati Bengals versus the 9-6 Chiefs. Kansas City comes in here 7-point favorites, over under 43.5. Bengals did lose Joe Burrow, but Jake Browning has actually been outplaying Joe Burrow so far this year. They still have playmakers. They still have Mixon. They have Chase, who was banged up last week, but he is on the roster. So this is a team that can move the ball technically. They do have some questions on the defensive side, though. Chiefs have no questions on their defense. They have a very strong defense, top 10 defense. They get after the quarterback, get sacks, pressures. The issue's been their offense. They've been completely sliding for the last month. Too many guys dropping balls. Pretty much outside of Kelsey, there's no main number one target. Looking at the team stats here, you have the Bengals coming in. They average on offense 21.2 points per game. Kansas City averages 22.2 points per game. So both teams are pretty even on offense. On defense, though, Cincinnati gives up 23.0 points per game. Kansas City gives up 17.7 points per game. Look for Patrick Mahomes to get the win, get back into the win category here. Just like the Eagles, they needed to end the losing streak. They need to get ready for the playoffs hot, riding a win streak. I have Kansas City getting the win here. 27-16, covering the spread, but I will be going with the under. Just barely. But I would not be surprised if this line moves down just a little bit by Sunday. And the final game that we're looking at, there's no Monday games this weekend because of the first round of the playoffs for college football. At 8:20 p.m. Sunday night on NBC, the 7-8 Green Bay Packers versus the 7-8 Minnesota Vikings. This is a big rivalry game here. You have the Vikings coming in 1-point favorites, so this game is virtually a pick'em. Over under 43.5. Packers, they've had a better second half than they had a first half. Second half hasn't been great, but it's been a lot better. Jordan Love has showed a lot of improvement on the field. He's closing in on 3,600 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 11 picks. So he's actually having a pretty strong season so far. For the Vikings, they've had a complete roster overhaul. They lost Kirk Cousins. They brought in Josh Dobbs. He stunk. They've had basically 3 or 4 different guys at the quarterback position. Even despite that, they're actually having a really good season, and they're still competitive, and they're a 500-ish team. Justin Jefferson has also missed a lot of time so far this season. Looking at the total team stats here, you have Green Bay coming in averaging 22.2 points per game. Minnesota 20.9 points per game. On defense, Packers give up 22.1 points per game. Although the D-line shutting down the rush game has played better the whole second half. Minnesota has a pretty stout defense. They give up 19.9 points per game. I have Green Bay getting the upset win here. So I'm going with the +1. I have Green Bay winning 23-21. So going with the +1, and I'm also going with the over. So that will complete our Sunday best bets. That's every game for Week 17 from Saturday and Sunday. Hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I'll make sure to respond. Thanks.